We zoomed and zoomed more, sadly, not a crease in sight. As spotless as his record against the evangelicals. Preliminary psychological analysis suggests he's having wholesome victory. I kicked y'all butts sleep. The kind of sleep one imagines a Byzantium conquering Rashidun soldier of the Khilafah would have had in the 7th century. As for Wood, he looks like he's just walked out of a rehab clinic and is still gripped by PTSD following his last encounter with the Sheikh.
Is he here? Is he here? Refuting the hell out of Christianity and teaching me basic maths.
After watching the triple mauling up close, Wood's camera is also suffering camera PTSD. Out of camera shot, Wood casually asks the Sheikh if perhaps he knew of any rehabs for cameras. After a bewildering look, the Sheikh, being unusually wise, suggested a trip to an electronic shop instead. Sympathy gripped the Sheikh, for then he realized that perhaps his triple beatdown had been more severe than he would have liked. Long-term mental trauma was never on the cards. This sad turn of events was confirmed a few minutes later when Wood bravely confessed that after their last encounter,
we both have legitimate mental health issues, right?
Got it. Okay.
As for Anthony the Crook Rogers, there are unconfirmed rumors circulating Balboa Park that he had secretly taken the Shahada. After a lifetime of evangelizing, coming out was always going to be harder than when he first came out as a lipstick-loving trans cross-dresser 20 years ago. We await confirmation, and you'll be the first to know the color of his new lipstick.
No! You gotta arrest him now!
Sir, it's 3 a.m. We told you, we'll have a word with the guy in the morning.
Arrest him now! Put him in Gitmo! You don't know, man. He's gonna make America Muslim. Even the FBI.
Sir, get some sleep.
He's a terrorist! He's Bin Laden's secret twin!
What? Take your medication, man, and go to sleep. It then dawned on the Sheikh that if Wood and his camera were in such a dire state, what of the toothless, foul-mouthed sewage breath Shamoun? They say following a car crash, it is the silent ones one ought to check first. Wood said he hadn't seen him for a few days and his phone was constantly engaged. Believing themselves celebrities on the level of Justin Bieber and Cardi B, the Sheikh had obviously lied when he said he didn't recognize them.
So I'd never seen any of your videos. I had seen a picture of you that some brother had sent me in a little dress or something, and people had said there's a guy named David and they call him Hammer Time Wood, but I'd never actually watched. And if you had run into me at a grocery store, I would not have recognized you. Right? So I don't want you to think that I was being dishonest with you.
Okay, well that's cool.
People had told me about your name. They had told you about calling you Hammer Time or whatever. I didn't know who you were, but I'd heard of your name. Okay, we clear on that?
Yeah.
The Sheikh is out of his blocks like a bullet, living up to his shooter moniker. Like a seasoned lawyer, he lunges on Wood and Crew's two craziest misconceptions. Well, lies, after their first debate. That in fact, contrary to their ridiculous assertion, the hadith about the Quran turning into a pale man and interceding for a reciter was not in At-Tirmidhi, as the learned Sheikh had always insisted. The hadith in At-Tirmidhi only mentions that the rewards of reciting the Quran will intercede for you.
Okay, so the hadith you guys mentioned last time was about Rajul al-Shahid, right? And you said it was in Tirmidhi, it's on video, yours, mine, right? And Anthony said it was in a Tirmidhi. And on their drive back, they made a video, which again, that was pretty interesting that, but in that they again repeated it was in a Tirmidhi. But that hadith is not in a Tirmidhi, right?
Okay, well, if so, then that's a mistake. We don't care about.
There you go. It's just relevant because even after that conversation, at least you and I haven't seen your responses, but at least your friends were continuing to say it's in a Tirmidhi when that's a lie because that's not in Tirmidhi.
Sheikh Uthman knew that on the spot we're not going to be able to pull up a bunch of stuff and show all these Islamic sources and scholars who classify this as a valid hadith, and so off the cuff is saying, it's weak, it's da'if, and so forth. But he knows, he's got to know, that we could later leave and then look up and see all the different scholars who have, in fact, given it a rating as Hassan or otherwise. And so, for what it's worth, he's wrong, the hadith.
When the Sheikh doesn't let up, Wood says that they didn't lie, for a lie requires intent.
Video.
No, a lie has got to be with intent, right?
Okay, so
if not, it's a mistake.
So when they left here...
And making a video where you call someone a liar, as they'd done against the Sheikh, is no way reflective of an express intent to defame someone's character, right? Wood, are you using that world-class Christian logic again?
You should be ashamed of yourself.
The Sheikh then confronts Hammer Time about Shamoun's un-Christian, working girl language in many of his live streams.
Yeah, he uses pretty foul language. You as a Christian, do you guys approve that?
Well, no.
We talked about like people's mothers being...
See, I'm like Sam in that it would depend on the situation.
So there are situations you would call people's mothers whores.
Not me, but there are situations.
Come on,
where
Dave.
It could be
Come on, Dave. You're on camera with your own people. You got to be honest, bro. You know that's not Christian behavior.
What
You
if
know
someone
that
understands he has issues? It's kind of when he's in the heat of the moment. It's just
sitting in his living room on a live stream.
Yeah, and it seems like look, it seems
trying, but you do condemn that kind of behavior, right? I just want to be clear.
If it's clearly uncalled for, like someone raises an objection, I think in Sam's mind, I'll give you an example. It's similar to Muhammad hijab, right?
Sure.
When people were making fun,
I don't think he's ever called anybody's mother a whore that I know of.
I'll tell you where the parallel is, right?
Mm-hmm.
How dare you? How dare you justify this? You think you have a case and you make me sick.
Words justifying it, using the fallacy of whataboutism, reflects the hypocrisy at the heart of his Christianity. They happily evangelize Christianity, convert Muslims, or at least they try, as a religion of turn the other cheek, love thy neighbor. But it's never lived up to by either Wood or Shamoun, pointing clearly to the inefficacy of Christianity as a way of life. Wood is unable to let go of his mistaken notion that the Quran itself turns into a pale man and intercedes on behalf of Muslims on Judgment Day. With a belief in Trinity, which is the laughingstock of the mathematically literate half of the world, he believes he has found an equally silly concept in Islam and is desperate to exploit it. Cameras are on, many Christians will be watching. This is his chance at saving Christian face, especially after the first debate, and the debacle that ensued there. Since Quran is eternal, this is his underhand attempt at setting up another deity to ultimately legitimize the Trinity. But at every step of the way, like an absurd cartoon character, his ridiculous argument falls apart. Initially, the ignorant muppets had insisted the hadith was found in at-Tirmidhi. Surprise, surprise. They were as right on that as Abu Jahl was on Islam in the 7th century. The hadith is in fact in Ibn Majah, but across the board, ulama, including Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah, had all graded it to be weak.
Mentioned the Rawan Ibn Majah. As I mentioned, if you take that chain by itself, and in my video I explained that chain is weak. You understand what I'm saying?
The one with the pale man?
The pale man.
Then why is this hadith graded Hasan on websites like Islam Q&A or had been? Wood responds with conviction. But even this has an effective response from the Sheikh that seals the round for him.
I'm curious, again, a website. These are not academic works, these are quoting, right? The Hasan grading is with a supporting evidence that doesn't mention Rajul al-Shahib, the pale man issue. The hadith in Ibn Majah by itself, not looking at supporting evidences, across the board, ulama graded it to be weak. Okay? Sheikh Albani, in the book that I showed in the video, the Da'if Ibn Majah by itself weakened it, right? right? But there are supporting evidences. But the key issue is the supporting evidence.
They don't have the pale man.
There you go, David. You're getting on board. Ready for Shahada now or later?
No, I have
Later?
to say,
All right.
when I see the different grading.
The part that is graded as Hasan on websites and online publishing houses is that the reward of reciting the Quran will intercede on the Day of Judgment, not the pale man aspect, and that's where the confusion came in. And this was the Sheikh's devastating right hook. Please lean back and admire.
Thawab means a reward. Okay? So the Quran, it's not the Quran becomes a person, it's the reward of you reciting the Quran, staying up at night, you know the hadith, the whole hadith, right? That reward will become a means of your sins being forgiven and you entering Jannah.
Subhanallah. The inability of David Wood to grasp a perfectly straightforward concept is unsettling for the Sheikh, and inwardly the Sheikh can't contain his laughter. By now, Hammer Time knows he's lost the argument, but he's too proud to concede the point, so he pivots to the next topic. Nervous, ragged, and reduced to shadowboxing the Sheikh, he fumbles into one ridiculous contention after another.
Here,
Surah Al-Fatiha.
Surah Al-Fatiha, what about it?
I know it doesn't start off with say. Right? It's just
Okay.
it's just a prayer.
Yeah? So what does that have to do with anything?
That's the speech of Allah, and he's not saying, if he's not commanding other people to say it.
Oh,
I'm just wondering if
Miskeen,
the-
poor guy. I got you, bro.
You say this, say that, say this, say that. Say this, say that, say this, say that.
That was always with him to Lawh al-Mahfuz. You know Lawh al-Mahfuz? No? All right. Do you know the Quran was revealed in 3 stages? Do you know this?
You mean what? All to Muhammad, right?
No? Problem. You know what a waqf is? You don't. So that's what I'm trying to explain to you.
Okay.
You see what this is? This letter here? Do you know what that is?
No, go ahead.
About a particular battles. You know that, right?
Yeah, but
So that's up.
we could.
Oh,
we could-
you
you're
didn't
saying that's a
know
particular
that.
This
See,
is
like your ignorance is the problem here because
this.
He then wrongly contends that Islam does not allow freedom of religion, and it allows apostates to be killed willy-nilly by Muslims.
Death penalty for apostasy. So
Sure.
you leave Islam, you convert
Sure.
to something else, and you get put to death. So
Sure.
This, of course, couldn't be further from the truth. In Islam, there is no compulsion in religion. Apostasy laws apply only if you're living in a khilafah under Islamic law, with law courts and judges, Islamic education, and you have given bay'ah, and then even if you apostatize yourself, nothing happens. Now, if you preach and try to convert the masses, causing social unrest and disharmony, then under Islamic law that falls under treason, because this is deemed fitna and tribulation in the land. Getting increasingly desperate, Wood tries to throw out the even more ridiculous notion that the Quran doesn't condemn the killing of innocent people, i.e. terrorism,
You should be ashamed of yourself.
even though it says very clearly that to kill one person is to kill all of humanity, to save one person is to save all of humanity. Wood then tries to argue that this verse only applied to the Jews, but the Sheikh begs to differ.
That there is not related just in that context. That hukam, that if you kill one person, it's like killing all of mankind unjustly, is going to be applicable till the Day of Judgment.
by the way, do you know where that?
Wood then asserts that the Quran is unclear and misleading when it comes to punishment for the crime of mischief in the land, and apparently this allows Muslims to arbitrarily apply an extreme punishment regime against perceived crimes against the state.
You're saying it's vague because you're ignorant, and I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as a advice, because you don't understand tafsir of what fasad fil ard means. But fasad fil ard has been explained by Ibn Abbas, by the companions, by the Prophet ﷺ. One of the things is banditry and rape. It's not vague at all, because if you looked at the tafsir of it, the explanation of it, which David Wood didn't take the time to do, that's why he thinks it's vague, then you would have known that there are particular crimes that bring these punishments, and they are not regular crimes. They They are when you, for example, rape and pillage and massacre people.
All else failing, Wood insists on setting up a false dichotomy, implying that Western values, ethical boundaries and criminal laws are clear and ethically applied across the board, while Islamic laws in the Quran are arbitrary and easy to exploit by tyrants.
We have to
Stop terrorism.
We have to.
What does terrorism mean? Who's a terrorist?
Let's say the normal definition of terrorism is not government.
So government-sponsored terrorism is not considered
I
terrorism.
believe I would have to consider this.
Look at the explicit clearness of terrorism now. So Hamas is a government, they're not terrorists? The right to bear arms. There are people that I know personally believe you should be able to own any kind of weapon, right? David Wood disagreed with that right now on tape, right? So obviously the second commandment is not that clear. There's disagreement. So
The Sheikh uses the example of terrorism and the constitutional right to bear arms in the Second Amendment to show Wood that this dichotomy is unsubstantiated and hypocritical. And so ended the second demolition of David Wood.